In the year 1092, in the bustling streets of Constantinople, merchants filled the agora, exchanging goods and services as they had for centuries. Amid the vibrant sounds of haggling, a shadow loomed over the Solidus, the city's once revered gold coin. Each day, traders felt the bite of inflation. Their Solidus coins, gleaming with promise, were being clipped, literally shaved down, to appear full weight. As prices began to rise, many questioned the stability of their currency. Once the foundation of the Eastern Roman Empire's economy, the Solidus was now teetering on the brink of collapse, bringing an era of uncertainty and turmoil. This moment encapsulates the critical lesson of monetary stability. Empires do not fall by mere coincidence, they crumble beneath the weight of their flawed currencies, driven by cycles of debt and inflation. Today, we will explore the decline of the Byzantine Solidus and uncover the 8 key lessons it imparts about why currencies fail, what signs to watch for, and how these historical patterns re-emerge in modern economies. The first lesson is the peril of unrestrained debt accumulation. In the early days of the Byzantine Empire, the Solidus was backed by solid gold, promoting confidence and facilitating trade across vast territories. However, as wars raged on, the need for funding led emperors to borrow heavily. By the late 10th century, the state was entangled in debt, with estimates suggesting a staggering 250,000 solidi owed by 1000 AD. This mounting debt compelled authorities to inflate the money supply, gradually eroding the currency's value. A similar pattern emerged in the late Roman Empire, where by 270 AD, the denarius, a once solid silver coin, plummeted in value as emperors minted more coins to fund military campaigns. By 400 AD, the denarius was reduced to mere copper, foreshadowing the empire's eventual disintegration. Today, we see parallels in nations like the United States, which has accumulated over $31 trillion in debt as of 2023, risking the value of the dollar. As history shows, excessive debt accumulation can lead an empire down a path of monetary destruction. The second lesson delves into the dangers of debasement. By the 11th century, the Byzantine Empire turned to debasing the Solidus to alleviate its financial pressures. This involved reducing the gold content of the coins while maintaining their face value. What began as a small fluctuation soon escalated. The Solidus, which once contained 4.5 grams of pure gold, was reduced multiple times, leading to a loss of confidence among the populace. The facade of a stable currency only lasted until merchants began refusing to accept the newly debased coins, triggering rampant inflation. We witness echoes of this in the Weimar Republic of Germany in the 1920s. To pay reparations following World War I, the German government began printing money at unprecedented rates. By 1923, Germany had experienced hyperinflation, with the value of the German mark dwindling to the point where a loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. Such stark discrepancies in currency value reveal how debasement convinces only to lose trust in the medium of exchange. In modern times, many countries grapple with a similar fate, as central banks attempt to address economic demands through constant monetary expansion. Each debasement erodes public trust. Our third lesson centers on the loss of confidence. By the latter half of the 11th century, as the Solidus became increasingly debased, it began losing the faith of both the populace and foreign traders. The once reputable coin was now viewed as little more than glorified scrap metal. A turning point came in 1071, following the disastrous Battle of Manzikert, which led to significant territorial losses. With a weakened empire came diminished confidence, driving a wedge between the government and its citizens. The parallels to the Spanish Empire's decline in the 17th century are instructive. Spain, once a global superpower, found itself unable to maintain the same level of confidence in its currency as it flooded its economy with silver from the New World. By the end of the century, the value of the silver peso had plummeted drastically, and an economy once enriched by infinite supplies turned into one struggling to maintain its footing. Presently, we see similar drops in confidence as inflation rises, potentially endangering trust in the global dollar system and creating an opportunity for challenges like cryptocurrencies and emerging market currencies. The fourth lesson is an unavoidable reality: the escalation of currency crisis often precedes a major geopolitical shift. The Byzantine Empire's crisis eventually culminated in the gradual loss of stability, culminating in the sack of Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade. The economy, crippled by inflation and loss of confidence, faced a complete collapse that reverberated across Europe. Historical records from the Roman Empire illustrate the decline through the lens of the broken economy. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire had been rendered ineffective by a combination of fiscal negligence, corruption, and invasions. In contemporary discourse, observers are continually mindful of potential shifts as emerging economies gain influence and challenge the historical dominance of established currencies. The repeated cycles of collapse urge us to recognize the signs before it's too late. Our fifth lesson highlights the necessity of a currency's intrinsic value. The soldiers of the Byzantine Empire were once paid in solidus, tied directly to the perceived worth of their metal content. Yet, as sound money morphed into fiat currency devoid of inherent value through debasement, the populace faced disarray. The currency's authority existed solely in the realm of collective belief rather than actual worth. This phenomenon aligns with the fate of the US dollar transitioning from the gold standard in 1971, which allowed for expansion in spending without collateral. Today, many nations face uncertainties as confidence in fiat currencies ebbs and flows, leading to exploration of alternative systems like digital currencies. The lesson remains clear: a currency without intrinsic worth will ultimately reveal its frailty. The sixth lesson creates a compelling case against the false belief that new currency iterations will protect against collapse. Throughout history, empires and governments have initiated fresh currencies in hopes of resetting inflationary spirals. The Byzantines issued the hyperpyron in the 11th century, a new gold coin aimed at restoring stability. Yet this only led to further confusion and instability as the populace navigated multiple currencies of varying values. This mirrors the attempts made by Weimar Germany to restore the mark by issuing the Rentenmark in 1923, which ultimately stabilized the economy but only after massive devastation. Today's digital currencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum entice discussions of alternate structures, but they, too, are susceptible to the economic realities described in history. Failure to recognize that the fundamental mechanisms of faith, value, and governance remain constant could lead to grievous miscalculations. As we near the end of our lessons, we reflect on the cyclical nature of all empires and currencies. Ultimately, every economy appears to believe itself an exception to history's lessons, ignoring the universal principles governing them. The Roman and Byzantine empires, too, thought they were immune to decline, believing their wealth and strength would last indefinitely. However, these very beliefs shifted from confidence to complacency. History has shown time and again that each empire slips into selective amnesia, dismissing the warning signs that it is repeating the patterns of its predecessors. So, how can we read the warning signs of collapse? It begins with a fundamental understanding of the balance between debt, confidence, and monetary policy. When observing excessive borrowing, declining intrinsic value, debasement, and a populace hesitant to believe in the currency's worth, these are markers that history has taught us should not be ignored. As vigilant observers of history, identifying these elements can illuminate the path ahead. In conclusion, the Byzantine Solidus serves as a potent reminder of the fragility that lies at the heart of every empire and its currency. Confidence ebbs and flows, but the underlying mechanics of economies mirror one another throughout history. History does not repeat, but the money rhymes. Subscribe for the patterns that outlast every empire, and tell me below which collapse you want decoded next. In examining the lessons drawn from the fall of the Byzantine Solidus, we uncover our seventh key lesson: the importance of a stable geopolitical landscape. The Solidus thrived during periods when Byzantium enjoyed relative peace and stability. Between the 4th and 10th centuries, the empire experienced considerable strength, allowing its economy to grow robustly. Prosperity flourished under emperors such as Justinian I, who ruled from 527 to 565 AD and bolstered the empire's defenses while championing civic development. However, this landscape began to unravel during the late 11th century. From 1071 onwards, following a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Manzikert against the Seljuk Turks, the empire faced significant territorial losses. Instability rattled not only military confidence but also economic groundwork. With territorial integrity compromised, local taxes became challenging to collect, diminishing state revenues and creating a vicious cycle of economic decline. A parallel can be drawn to the 1970s in the United States, marked by geopolitical crises such as the Vietnam War and the oil shock of 1973. These events, compounded by an erosion of public trust and inflationary pressures, led to a new era of economic uncertainty. The dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency began to come under pressure, as perceived stability shifted when oil-exporting nations sought more diversified currencies for their trade transactions, demonstrating how intertwined geopolitics and monetary confidence can be. Transitioning to our 8th lesson, we must emphasize the dangers of inadequate responses to crises. In the wake of inflation and instability, Byzantine emperors failed to implement effective reforms. As the populace grew restless, the government increased taxes and instituted measures to control prices, but these actions met with rebellion rather than resolution. The 1182 sack of Constantinople by the Venetians laid bare the empire's vulnerability, exposing institutional weaknesses, especially when faced with soaring inflation that had driven costs wildly out of control. This lesson resonates today, as nations struggle to respond adequately to economic shocks brought about by the global pandemic or the geopolitical tension stemming from modern conflicts. The failed responses witnessed during these crises can lead to an extended loss of confidence in governments and their currency, as seen when countries experience significant civil unrest during periods of economic hardship. As we reflect on these lessons, we confront a sobering reality: the fall of currencies like the Solidus is a direct consequence of deteriorating public confidence, mismanaged responses, and the intricate dance between economic resilience and geopolitical stability. This brings us to our overall theme on the fragility of currency, a lesson that extends far beyond just the Byzantine Empire. Reinforcing our understanding of this cyclical nature requires a nuanced view of current economic policies and their long-term implications. Today, we witness unprecedented monetary policies globally, with central banks in advanced economies engaging in practices like quantitative easing and near-zero interest rates. As observed in our historical lens, these actions mimic the excessive coinage minted by late Roman emperors and the Weimar Republic's unchecked money printing. The concern lies not just in the immediate impact but also in the future ramifications, as these decisions may cultivate euphoria today, yet sow the seeds of mistrust and devaluation tomorrow. The reality is, throughout history, empires tended to dismiss the warnings of their predecessors, a collective amnesia regarding the lessons of past monetary errors. The Byzantine Empire believed their well-established institutions and accumulated wealth could shield them from the typical vicissitudes of monetary decline. This flawed belief echoed through the corridors of history, where every empire believed, to varying extents, that their currency was the exception to the rule, that somehow, through sheer force of will, they could avoid the pitfalls that led to the downfall of those before them. As we reach the end of our examination, this illusion of exceptionality is a false belief worthy of correction. Every empire, past or present, remains subject to the same financial mechanics at play. Even the most stable of economies are vulnerable. Signs of excess and miscalculations manifest in various ways. Be it through elevated debt levels, inconsistent policies, or disregarding the delicate balance of public trust, the underlying mechanics reveal inevitable patterns that repeat tirelessly throughout history. How can we, as mindful observers, arm ourselves against these repeating cycles? It starts with a vigilant awareness of economic indicators, comprehending the systemic interconnectedness of debt, currency stability, and geopolitical influences. When we witness rising debts alongside declining trust in currency, we must remain astutely aware of the cataclysmic implications, armed with the understanding that swift actions and reforms are essential. In our modern world filled with speculation and financial uncertainties, it becomes crucial to discern the manifest signals that reveal underlying economic instability, much like the Byzantine merchants once observed the gradual devaluation of the solidus. Recognizing when currency begins to slip in value, when public trust falters, and when the balance of fiscal responsibility wavers is akin to tracing cracks in a dam, manageable if acknowledged early, yet potentially catastrophic if ignored. As we conclude this exploration of the fall of the Byzantine Solidus and its lessons, we have traversed the myriad mechanisms that underpin currency stability or collapse. From the dangers of unrestrained debt accumulation and the consequences of debasement, to the importance of political stability and adequate crisis responses, each lesson serves as a solemn reminder of history's repetition. Through continuous examination of the Byzantine past, we are reminded that currencies and empires rise and fall, leaving in their wake valuable insights we must strive to heed as we navigate the complexities of our present-day economies. History does not repeat, but the money rhymes. Subscribe for the patterns that outlast every empire, and tell me below which collapse you want decoded next.